Hi everyone. My name is Vráťa Kalenda. Oh, that's the first fuck up. My name is Vráťa Kalenda and I am co-founder of Applifting. And today I will be hosting our own fuck up night. And let's start with a fuck up. So today I was not supposed to be hosting this. My co-founder Filip Kirchner was supposed to be hosting it. But today in the morning he just wrote me that he got a COVID. So let's start with this fuck up, So I'm trying to find a lesson learned there. Maybe take your vaccines. So yeah, you will have to suffice with me. I'm Vráťa. I will be hosting today's night. And the first speaker is our Scrum Tech lead. He likes to play music. He likes trapné vtipy. I think it's called puns or daddy jokes. And he wants to be a stand-up comedian. So let's see about that. So the first speaker is Holy Trinity, His Holiness Lukáš Jan Marek. Welcome him to the stage.
Second fuck up. First lesson learned. Oh, I think some mistake you need to do. It's important to do some mistakes. Do you hear me? Yes? Does the microphone works? Yeah, it works. Okay, so I'm having this informal conversation with a colleague after work. And the colleague, she's like, okay, wait, Lucas, how old do you think I am? And I'm not answering that. She's like, well, come on. So I wanted to be really, really polite, and I guessed super low age, which actually made her angry. And she was like, fuck, are you crazy? I'm super angry now. So I'm like, you asked. Okay, lessons learned, never try to guess an age of somebody, even if they ask you to guess that. Maybe out of curiosity, can you guess how old I am? Sorry? 18, yeah, fuck you, but also you should start paying attention. I have some useful information here, trust me. All right, little bit of disclaimer. So I'm Lukas, I'm a tech lead for Scrum and Agile methodologies here, and many of the things all of the things I will be presenting here, I will be presenting in a first person. They don't necessarily happen to me, yeah? I'm just for clarity, I'll be presenting in a first person, but maybe some of them didn't happen to me, or maybe they did, and I'm too embarrassed to share it. All right, data is new oil, of course, except when you have too much data. So a situation, I'm showing some charts to our customers about the time spent by the developers. And I'm like, all right, this is the chart, yes, bug fixing, development, yeah. And the customer was like, okay, are you saying that the team spent half of their time doing something else than development? And I'm like, oops, customer is like, and I'm like, and then, luckily, the customer was like, haha, I say it all the time. Just take an estimate of the developer, double it, and you will get the correct answer. I'm like, whew, all right, that was close. But too much information can be hurtful without proper interpretation. Be careful not to overshare, or if you are sharing some kind of data to the customer, make sure that you explain the context behind the data, because it can be very, very easily misinterpreted. Time is money, yeah, of course. So I'm sending an email, July timesheets, okay, hi, I'm sending you this timesheet for July, including the invoice calculation and based on the spent hours and agreed rates. Customer replies, hi Lucas, I think you sent us the wrong file. We are not the name of the customer. Yeah, I replied. Hi, you're right. I'm very sorry. Here is the correct one. I'm sorry, my bad. Customer, no worries. You are lucky that the customer had higher rates than us. Oh. Yeah. I cried a little bit, but it was okay at the end. Lesson learned: humans are prone to making stupid mistakes, so things like this will happen. Use maybe some double checking or maybe checking with somebody else. Yeah, the talent. Next one. So let me fill you up in the situation. This is a little bit more complicated. We had in a company 15 open developer positions. Many projects in the pipeline. We were comfortable hiring for bench, so people didn't have the project, but we knew that we will get the projects. The approach was, okay, if we hire somebody who is not that good, we will test this person during the trial period and we can sort it out. Recruitment team was super overwhelmed, and I was on vacation. Well, about to leave on a vacation. And here comes Peter. The interview, he seems like a nice guy. He's talkative, it was nice. It was last day before my vacation. I was dealing a lot of shit to make sure that I leave for vacation and be nice, so I was kind of half paying attention. He had interesting experience based on the CV. Why is he changing the company so often? Well, that was a gut feeling, but never mind. The verdict: he is technically mid-year with potential, all right? And the recruitment team should check for the references just to be sure. All right, I left for our vacation, making sure I hand over all of the information, check the references, and it will be all fine. Goodbye. But, yeah, it's about to go down. So, filling of the position was urgent. Manager decides to hire. Let's hire, it's fine. Potential issues we will solve during the trial period. Overwhelmed recruitment did not ask for the references, and we hired Peter as a senior in July during summer. Welcome on board. It took 7 weeks for the customer to give him access. Well, because everybody was on vacation and he didn't get the accesses. And the 2 only seniors on the project left for vacation. So Peter stayed on the project only with 1 junior. Yeah, last week of the trial period, I'm like, hey guys, do you have some feedback on Peter? First senior, nothing. Second senior, I saw his code and I don't think that he is a senior. All right, I'm like, okay, that's fine. Everybody deserves a second chance. We will have some kind of workshop and let's support him so we can bring him up to the level where it will work out and it's fine. Yeah. Next day after the trial period ends, Peter was like, fuck this, I'm not doing anything. Yeah, so the aftermath. We gave him 1 month to improve based on the feedback. It didn't work because he didn't want to. Peter got a reprime letter, or vytýkací in Czech. He did not accept the severance pay. Lawyers were involved. We kind of had to find some kind of paragraph that we can fire him because he has lack of qualification. It was hard. Customers needs to be involved because he needed to stay on the project because he needed to be given a chance to improve, which he didn't want. But yeah, he had to stay on the project. We had to compensate the customer because he basically kept a total dighead on his project. We had to micromanage everything that he did, taking screenshots of what he did, of the board and everything to just gather evidence. He got sick multiple times because he wanted to prolong the process. He knew the Czech law better than, well, anyone in the company. And 1 developer unfortunately burned out and left because of Peter, because he had to basically carry him for multiple months. Finally, we were able to give him a notice. He refused. It's expected. He can refuse that. And he said that he will take action, so we withdraw the notice. Because the notice is a one-side action, so basically the other party can not accept it. And the employee has 1 year right by the law to challenge the notice. So we spent 1 year living in fear that he will do that. He did not. All right. Lessons learned. Check the references properly. Listen to your guts. Yeah, if you don't have a good gut feeling on the interview, maybe listen to it. Gather feedback sooner. It shouldn't take 7 weeks to get the accesses. It shouldn't take, the trial period is there for there. Access rights needs to be quicker. Of course, utilize fixed term contract. There was a good point where in case we are not sure, we can already do a fixed term, so then if we are not happy, we will just not prolong it. Yes, and this was a little bit like a heavy one, so I want to leave you with a lighter one. So customers too also make mistakes. There was a developer, Karel. He had only one hand from birth. He was making fun that he lost it because there was some money on the railway, but no, he was basically one-hand developer, full price, by the way, full price. Customer knows Karel, so customer knew that Karel has only one hand, and Karel, he left to a different project after some time, and it was fine, so only one developer stayed on the project. Customer realized it needs more capacity. Customer is like, Roman only has 2 hands, we need more people, so can we get Karel back? Karel is like, well, I'm not sure if my hand will help. Of course, it's 2 more hands. We are laughing on the floor. There was a moment of silence. Customer is like, I'm so sorry I said that, yeah. So customers make mistakes too. This is a proof, this is a real screenshot of the conversation. It's in Czech, but sorry, but yeah. I highly recommend you to take screenshots of these funny moments. I have a folder with these funny things, and it's just fun to take a look on them. Or you can use them for some presentation if you have in the future. And I want to leave you with this. If you are not making mistakes, then you are not doing anything. I'm positive that doers makes mistakes, so it's okay to make mistakes. Thank you very much. Questions?
Wow. That was not just one fuck up. That was like multitude of fuck ups.
Yes. Yes. Not everyone done by me.
How old are you that you collected so much fuck ups?
13 in my head.
Then we fucked up that we employed you. I think 13, that's child labor.
Yeah. You're right.
Oh God. Okay. Anyway, do you have any question for Lukáš? Anything that you would like to know?
Yeah.
I have just a quick question.
Yeah. Wait. You will get the mic. Because you will get the mic and you will get the mic.
Oprah.
I have a quick question. Do you have an estimate how much it cost the company to hire Peter?
No, but it was a lot because there was also a lot of people involved in that. I'm not sure.
You were too afraid to do the estimate.
Yeah, but I don't think I'm able to do the. He didn't accept the severance pay, so I don't know. But it was a lot. One burned out developer. Yeah.
But like these company surfers, they exist. They are not just
it was
the legend.
A company hopper.
Company hopper.
Hopper. No, hopper.
Yeah.
The question for the company: how do you accumulate the lessons learned, and how do you communicate it to the rest of the team?
Like in general, of course, well, as soon as it happens, or as soon as if we are in the middle of solving some shit, then we are solving it. But as soon as, I don't know, project ends, we have some kind of whole project retrospective. We are working with retrospectives on a sprint basis, so every 2 weeks, where things like this should be opened, and these kind of bigger mistakes. Well, this was one of the big mistakes. You just solve with the team and communicate it. Maybe write some lessons learned from it. Maybe some case. Just make sure that you don't repeat your mistake.
But I will tell you a secret about Lukáš. He's running an agile coffee here in Applifting, where he kind of picks up, let's say, interesting topics from different projects, and he tries to share not only mistakes but the best practices that way, and that works.
Yeah, nice presentation.
Thank you.
I don't know if it was intentional, but your T-shirt is backward.
Oh, that's a fuck up. It was
Yeah.
intentional, but it happened to me multiple times unintentionally.
Okay, and if I can ask you the second question, if the customer would get like the rate, if it was lower, would he like, can he argue, or it's just like?
At this case, we had a really good relationship, so I think that even if he got like he had a higher rate, it depends. I think I would have to have some hard conversation, not only with him but also with the sales guy. That would be like, oh, oops, I actually did this, and we have to explain. I think we could explain because there were some reasons why, you know, some customers has lower rates because they are old customers, so they have lower rates than some customers that are newer because the rates are increasing. I think it will be tough discussion, but it would be a transparent discussion that would hopefully go my way.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Hi. You mentioned that fuck-ups and errors and human errors happen quite a lot. What do you do in your company specifically for people not to be afraid to do errors? Because you mentioned, like, if they don't do anything, then they would not fuck up. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you have something like a cultural thing?
I think generally with, like, Applifting is working a lot with feedback. And so in case something happened, okay, let's talk about it, let's give each other feedback, let's discuss it, let's find some solution, let's find some lessons learned so it doesn't happen again. Then generally we are running projects in agile methodologies, mostly in Scrum, that basically directly counts with some kind of change or some kind of adjustments based on the feedback, stuff like that, so that's engraved within the framework. And I think Applifting generally is very open for communication and transparency, so just mistakes happen and you address them by talking about them. And to a little bit přihřát polívčička, to, I don't know, pat on my back for Scrum Masters. Thank you, and I'll forget that one. Every time you touch me, I forget what I want to say.
Přihřát polívčička for Scrum Masters.
Yeah, that. One of the superpowers of Scrum Masters is to, like, address some mistakes or address some questions that is in everyone's head, but maybe are afraid to say it out loud, or maybe they don't see it because they are focused on something else. So that's one of the, let's say, superpowers of Scrum Masters, or skill that Scrum Master should have to say, like, there is a problem, we need to talk about it.
Thanks.
Thank you too.
Okay, last question from the gentleman over here.
What was the period that Peter was in the previous companies?
6 months, something like that.
All right, thanks.
Less than a year. Sorry? Yeah. I changed the names. So.
Anything on Slido? No? That's because that's my fuck up. I didn't tell you that there's Slido. So for the next talk.
Thank you very much.
Lukáš Jan Marek.
See you.
Okay, so the next talk will be from me because we don't have the host. So I will introduce myself. I'm co-founder of Applifting. I founded the company 10 years ago. I started as a backend developer. Then I did mobile. Then I did solution architecture. Then people prohibited me from coding here. So now I'm just talking to people. That's what I do most of the time. But those fuck-ups I'm going to show you are from the time when I still was coding and was still, hands-on on the project. So let's see. Okay. So I actually don't have only one fuck-up for you. I have two fuck-ups for you. And my talk is called Randomly Sexy Fuck-ups. Because one is sexy and the second one is random. So I've already told you what I am, so let's skip to the first fuck-up. And it's a rather sexy fuck-up. So we did this very complicated system called Fuedus that saves lives. I will show you how it works. Basically, there are some organs for transplantation in the European Union that cannot be transplanted directly in the country because there's no donor that can accept that organ. So that or because of, for example, blood type or different age and so on. So that organ is offered to other neighboring countries normally. And 10 years ago, this was done by paper and phone. So you would call, and people would be negotiating over the phone and so on. It could take up to 45 minutes before the destination for a heart would be given. So we've created a system for European Union that kind of speeds up this communication by following the contracts and kind of allowing online communication. So for example, a heart could be negotiated within not 45 minutes, but 5 to 8 minutes. And that saves lives because then you can transport the heart to a longer area, right? So we did this. You can see on the public page the participating countries and the organizations there. And then there was like articles about it written on Novinky and IDNES, how this system saves lives. Right? So this is nice. We've saved over 300 lives up to this point over the course of this running. But let's just imagine what does it mean. That means that this is like a system with very robust operational model. It has a CI/CD where you cannot just deploy to production. There are multiple steps, multiple code reviews. There's this mantra of if it saves lives, don't touch it. So basically, besides security updates, you just don't touch that code at all, right? So it was written once, tested the hell out of it. It was, penetration tested everything, and then it was like, let's deploy. It runs somewhere in the EU data centers. We don't even know where it runs because that's not our job to know. We are the third level support on it. On average, we have 0.5 incidents per year because first, we don't change code that much. Second, well, they really tested it before it was put into production. But one cold morning, there's a guy, I got a call, and from the other side, I hear, hey, this project, it has been hacked. I'm like, what? So this is me in that morning. This is me after they telling me that it has been hacked. And I was like, no way. What? And they are like, it shows porn to all the visitors. And I'm like, what? This is me on that morning. This is me after I've heard this. That's weird. But we of course, dropped everything and started to investigate. And we find out that on this public page, where you have all the participating countries, you can click on a country, and you can see like this box down here. I will zoom it out for you. And that's the participating organization in that country that coordinates the transplantations. There's this website thingy here. And it just happened. It was not Greece. It was someone else. I won't shame them, so they are not here. Well, if you clicked on their website, there's like 20 to 30,000 page visits a month because this is a public project. If you click on this website, you get something like this. You're like, oops, this is not good. So it kind of redirected to some random porn site. And in order to understand how this could happen, let's look into how domains work. If you want to have something on the web, you need to have a domain. If you don't forget about it or you renew it, you can have it anywhere from 1 to 10 years without renewal. But if you forget about the website, it gets into expiration. It depends on the country, on average 45 days. And if you still don't they are writing you and calling you and saying, hey, do you want that domain? And if you are still ignoring them, you have the redemption period, that's 30 days. But it costs a lot more money to get domain back in this period. But if you are still ignoring them or you really don't want that domain, it gets into pending deletion. You cannot get domain after this. You have to wait as everyone else. And then the domain gets finally released. And it so just happened that one of the partners, one and only IT guy left. Because sometimes the coordination centers are very small units, 5 to 10 doctors, one IT guy. The IT guy left, the domain, it's just some information domain with blah, blah, blah about the coordination center, so who would take care of it? It's not like mission, it doesn't save lives, it's not mission critical. So this domain got released. And there are those very nice people on the internet called cyber squatters. They will take your domain and put very nasty stuff on it. They either auction it off, or they just say, hey, you probably still want this domain. Look what's there now. And they kind of extort you for some money. So this was there. This was on the website. So, and it was basically here, right? So what did we do? Remember, this is like a string operational security. We cannot go into, it's not like a code. We cannot go and change the code. It's some live data. The administrator left, so they cannot change it. And we cannot go straight into production database and change it. So the way what we did is we deploy a release, and the only thing that the release had was a migration script for the database, and that had an update clause for that little center, and we just erased the link. So that was the quickest resolved ticket with the severity of A in the whole project. I think we solved in under 2 hours, including testing. And so we just kind of like, deleted it, and that's how it all ended. So that was more of a, let's say, funnier one, and now I will tell you about something that cost some real money. And that's what happens when you run out of randomness. So let's set up the scene. We are delivering this huge project for a corporate client. It's actually not only us, it's like us, another company, and some operation guys, and some testing guys, like multi-company cooperation on this big project. Year in the making, and on the launch day, there should be like a migration of millions of users into the new solution. And let's say there's some monetary value attached to that the migration works, right? So the architecture was simple. There was a native mobile app. There was some cryptography-heavy REST API, and then there were some servers. We didn't even know which servers, because that was the customer's thing. But we knew it's some virtual private servers on VMware or something like that. Okay, but we wanted to be prepared, right? So because, we didn't want to fuck it up. So the developers from our side are like, everything is tested. We have like CI/CD integration tests, everything, code coverage 90%, let's go, right? And the same thing from the other company that was writing the other part. And the testers, both our testers and the customer testers, like, it's running, let's go. Like we did some end-to-end tests, and we did some manual testing, and it works, let's go. And the operation is like, we've deployed, and it runs. Right? That was the status. The testers even did a load testing. They tested it against millions of virtual users, everything green, right? So the day came, the users updated the app, they clicked launch, they logged in. Let's just say that out of those millions of users that should have been migrated, we migrated around lower tens of thousands of users. Because back in the server room looked like this when the users were trying to migrate. This is me that day. It wasn't good. And they called us to war room, and it was like, why it's not working? This is so bad. This is so bad. And there was a rollback or something, but like nobody knew why this is not working because everything was tested. So it took some detective work to find out why this was not working. And we have some clues. The first clue was that the servers returned 503 server unavailable error. It was on the JVM stack with like those web servers and stuff, and this was the error code. The second thing is that the request that returned 503 because the servers weren't able to keep up were generating some private public key pairs. That was the second clue. The third clue was the thread just hanged, like you started the process, and it just hung there. Nothing kind of happened. And when the customer had some tracking, so we were able to go into the, where everything is frozen. And we found this class, secure random, which is used to generate random numbers. So there's this kind of random next bytes call that you can do, and it's so innocent, right? It should return random numbers. That's all it should do. So what the fuck? Why it's not working? Like, why? Why this is costing like insane amount in damages, and why this is not working? Why this is hanging all the servers? So we went to the manual for Java from Oracle. It's boring, right? There's nothing basically except this clause down there. This clause says, depending on the implementation, the generate seed and next bytes method might block if entropy is being gathered. For example, if they need to read from def random or blah, blah, blah. So there are some things like to block. That's what's happening. Entropy. What's entropy? Def random. What's that? Right? This is like our thought process. So we dug deeper. And the first thing is to understand why do we need entropy? Why it's important to be gathered? The entropy actually signals how much random the random numbers are. I know it sounds stupid, right? But that's how it is. So the more entropy, the more the random numbers are random. Why do we need random numbers? Because when you do cryptography, you need truly random numbers to create those keys. Because if you don't have the random numbers, and for example, the random number is 10, and it's 10 every time, the attacker could just come and see, I don't know your private key, but I guess you will be initializing that key with the number 10, because it was 10 all the time before. So now I have your private key because I know the initialization, the random number. So that's why you need entropy, to make the cryptographic key unique all the time. I'm simplifying a lot, but please bear with me. So that's why the function is blocking, because you need a random key. So let's look on the randomness source, the /def/random, how it works and why it's blocking and what the fuck. So I drew a little diagram taken from some blog posts. I try to make it more clear. So basically, the random source starts with the entropy collector that collects some randomness from various entropy sources. We will get to that later. But basically, it takes some, I don't know, it will take some noise from the system. It will estimate how much entropy there is, and it has this entropy counter, which basically says how much randomness is in the system. And every time it says, the entropy is good enough, it will increase that counter. Then it does some, let's call it normalization. Then that entropy comes into random number generator, that's that thing. It creates something called randomness pool, which is just like random values. And then when you want a random value, it decreases the entropy counter by 1, because you actually want the random value, so it kind of, we use some of that entropy at the start to give you the random number. But the problem is it blocks, and it won't let you if the counter is smaller than 1. Basically, if no entropy, no randomness is left in the pool. And then it gives you it through the def random. Very simplified, right? But this is this is a problem. So we found the problem. But why is this happening? Where is the entropy coming from? How can I have more entropy? So we were thinking what to do with it. So what are those various entropy sources? So we went to the Linux manual, and the Linux manual says, random number generator relies on the entropy gathered from device drivers and other sources of environmental noise. Well, that's not very useful. But so we went through, not through the code, but through some explanations from more clever guys than us. And we found that it actually gathers entropy from things like keystrokes. So when you are clicking, like the delay between the different clicks on your keyboard, that's an entropy source, because it's very hard to predict. The other one is mouse movement. I don't know if you generated some keys sometimes, but some of the key generation algorithms like move your mouse a lot, right? That's what it wants. Or from like noise from the headset, or from like fan, that's and the control of the fan. That's all entropy sources. And you You push it down into the machine, and you spit out random numbers. Nice. But do you know which computers have nearly no input sources? Yes, it's servers. Do you know which computers have even less input sources? It's virtual servers. So what basically happened is that, it's like this, when we found out, basically what happened is that these various entropy sources on our servers were nearly zero. There was not enough entropy in the system. So it was barely enough to migrate, the thousands of the users, but not like millions of them when we were generating the keys. And this whole thing basically went crashing. So we couldn't save the first migration, but we could save the second migration. So the solution, we took this random source, which was very pedantic, very rigid about what means a random number, and we changed it to this source. And the only difference is that it's non-blocking. So even if the entropy is low in the system, it still works, and it still will give a let's say, good enough random number. So this is scratch, and everything else is the same. And by the way, this is such a common mistake that the 2020 Linux kernel actually patched this, and even the def random doesn't block right now after it gathered enough entropy at the start. So now it's not a problem unless you work for a corporate which has 8 years old kernels. But it's okay. That happens. But if still in doubt and you need the random numbers all the time and quickly, you can still use urandom. There's this article which kind of goes into the cryptography details. You can read about it if you really want. And if you still think urandom is a bad idea, here's an actual cryptographer working on the Linux kernel telling you otherwise. So you can still trust this, this source. And if you really want truly random numbers, you must not generate it in a computer. Do it the way how they do it in Cloudflare. Have a wall of lava lamps, take a picture, do a hash, and out of that hash, that will be a truly random number. Thank you. So, hey, Vráťa, that was a very nice talk. Thank you. If anybody has questions for Vráťa, please don't hesitate to ask. It's either on Slido, maybe not, or through a microphone. So, any questions? Okay, I tried it. So thanks. So that was a little bit about cryptography, and of course we do a lot of fuck-ups here. So if you want to do fuck-ups with us, we have some, still places left to be filled with people doing fuck-ups like me. And now we will have a 15-minute break. So enjoy the beer, enjoy the food, and see you after the break. Thank you. Hey everyone. So grab a beer, grab a snack. We will start in 2 minutes. We will start in 2 minutes. Thank you. Okay, so slowly, let's start. Let's start. We have more fuck-ups, even juicier fuck-ups. Fuck-ups of various scale and impact and emotional damage. The next one is a personal pet peeve of Tomáš there. It will be great. So, by the way, I will try it. There's a Slido. You can scan it. You can ask questions there if you want to ask anonymously, or you can always raise your hand. We can do both. So, Slido there. And now let me tell you something about our next speaker. Tomáš is our tech lead on Java, but somehow he ended up doing front end for the last year or something, 2 years, oh God. Anyway, Tomáš likes bodybuilding. He likes everything starting with star, so Star Trek, Star Wars, stars, Stargate, everything star related. And today he will tell you a story about how date picker can be picky. Tomáš Geržičák.
So, hey guys, does it work? Oh, no. Probably. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe? Yeah. So, first of all, few questions. Who has experience with front-end development here? Like, raise your hand. Oh, nice. So many people. Cool. So, who has ever tried to build a design system or like something? Okay. Few hands, but fine. Cool. Who has tried to build their own date picker? Yeah, you probably made it better than me. Nice. Thank you, guys. So, about me. I've been programming for over 6 years, from like creating presidential websites, doing e-shops in WordPress, because everybody's starting with that, right? Then I fell in love kind of in Java during my studies in CDU, and joined Applifting, working on projects, yes, Vráťa said, like as a Java developer, React Vue, sort of things, yeah. And then recently I became a Java tech lead. So my assignment was kind of easy. It's like, you know, hey, Tom, create a date picker. And I was like, okay, like this is it. So I decided like, hey, okay, I will try to use the native HTML date picker, like input, as much as I can. So I just used this, put it in some styles, replaced the original native calendar with our own from like UI library that we had. And this is kind of it. So, okay, let's go to the design. I was thinking, it was 2 years ago, and I was like early media developer, and I was thinking like, since it's a date picker, then probably like it should work with a JavaScript date, right? Like it's a date picker, so like date object is like obvious choice. So I was like, okay, like let's have the date picker and only work with dates. Then I had those like, you know, native input and the curated the calendar component that was working with the strings. And I was like, okay, like, you know, I wanted to have like the best, I want to like prove myself. So I will do some like formatters, mappers, whatsoever, because my component will be the fucking best and it will be so easy to use, because there was only assignment actually, like to make it use like, you know, as easy as possible. So like, yeah, okay, let's do it. Like, yeah, let's do it. Yeah, right, like it's date, like with the date pickers. So, okay. This is the original solution. It's kind of like simplified. It was in Vue. So yeah, like really basic thing. And I know like if you are looking down below, it's bad. I'm sorry, it was like 2 years ago. But like this is gonna be a problem for the future. But like let's not get ahead of ourselves. So we'll get to that. So then I released it to production. And I was like, okay, like this is like, you know, my job is done. I will just create a documentation, post about it in a dev channel so everybody can use it, and it's gonna be fine, right? No, it wasn't. We started to getting those like weird things about like people trying to format the date, so like they can use date picker, so they tried to do it like, you know, some formatting, and they were getting some like switching between days, some time zone issues, and like this is another weird formatting from Slack, and here another like it's adding some offset to the time zone and some weird formatting, like this becomes this after the date picker, and I was like, okay, like what the hell? Like this is not like concerning my date picker, right? Because my date picker, because I only tested it in Storybook. Like if you know Storybook, it's basically a tool for like documenting and testing UI components on a web. So I was like, okay, like my date picker is just modifying the date. Where could be a problem? And then I figured it out. The problem was that this date kinda like gets from a server, and when it goes through the date picker, then if you can see it adds 6 hours. And if you do it like multiple times, you will get like, it's okay because you know the date is like, I'm only concerned with this, so like why the hell should I be concerned with this? And this is the problem, because when you do it a couple of times, like when you save it and like do it a couple of times, and this is like what it was really hard to test, that like if you get to this state, 23, and it adds 6 or a couple of hours, then you will get the different dates. And this was the problem, because our testers were like, okay, if we will save this form like 5 times, then we will get a different date and a date picker. And I was like, okay, this is weird, and I don't know like where could be a problem. We found out that the problem was that our system was only using one time zone, and it was like this time zone was set in the settings, and it was the server time zone, and this thing was get from the server. And once you put it on front end, like on a web, and then it gets passed to the local date and passed to the date picker, the local date will add the difference. So if our server was like based on in America, in the US, then it will add approximately like 6 or 7 hours. So it will get this point. So like the problem was that only those things, like those settings, were causing the problems, and it was kind of like probably one good thing about it. It was like really hard to replicate on production servers, so it was fine because our clients was based in the US, so that was kind of okay. But still, they have a couple of instances that people were, for example, have the server in the US and were, for example, in South Korea or something like this. So there was a problem, and it needed to be resolved. Okay. One last question. Who knows how the date in JS work internally? Like, if you know, do you know? No? Okay. Yeah, probably no. It's only a timestamp. It's on a number. Like, internally, the date in JavaScript is only a number, and it's just a normal timestamp from the Unix epoch. So from this date. And here comes the problem, because I don't want numbers. I just want this, right? Because my date is just handling this thing. I just want to pick year, month, and day. That's it. And this is where the problem was. So yeah, we all know like how this happened. because it's just a number, and it will just get those hours to the date, and we'll get to the server. So this was the problem. Okay, here comes the solution. The kind of like dumbest solution that came to my mind, and I just didn't want to change the date picker, because the date picker back then was used like really many times across the platform, so I didn't want to like change it immediately. So I created those like parsers. So if you will get to the date will get from a backend, it will get parsed to the local time zone, gets to the date picker. The date picker will modify it. Then it will go past like another parser, like another formatter, and this will transform it to the backend time zone and goes to the backend. It's like, it's fine, but it's not good, not fine for me. So I just wanted to like dive in. Then I went to the different solution. So I thought like, okay, the date picker, like the using the date was not such a brilliant idea that I thought earlier. So I know that it needs to be working with only this string. This will be changing. Basically, the native HTML input is doing pretty much this, and also the UI calendar from like UI component library has been doing this thing. So I thought like, okay. So I moved all the logic and all the things that really mattered to the base date picker, which was only working with the strings. So this is going to be like fine, clean state that I want, and then having this like the old component, like the date picker, to be only kind of like adapter to the like external world, to the whole platform. And in the date picker, I enabled right now to be working also with string, so it accepts the string and also a date. But there was a kind of problem also that's how the date picker will know if to emit date or string, right? Because if it gets a string on the input, that they will know that it will need to emit the string on the output. If it gets the date, the same thing. But what if you have the null value? So I was like, okay, if you have a null value, then the previous implementation was that if you have a null value, then it will emit the date. So I needed to emit the date. But I wanted to have like the same component to be like, to tell her that like, hey, I want strings. So I had this dumbest idea that I could have to create another prop and tell her like to emit strings. So yeah, it's a very weird prop, but it works. So it's fine. So right now we have the solution. It's kind of like the date picker will be only working with a string, and from now on, it will be working with strings, and everything will be fine. So the people, like the developers who will be using the date picker, will be only working with the date picker, and it will be just working with the string. So they will just have it like this, and what the values they want, they will just transform it however they want. Actually, I found out quite later, because I didn't know it back then, that some developers actually wanted just this string. So what they did previously was that they were just getting this string from a backend, they transform it to the date, then have it to the date picker, and the date picker gave them the new value, and the new value, they transformed the new value to this string and sent it to backend. So like it came kind of naturally, but it came kind of later, but never mind, it came. So yeah, this is what we kind of did. But right now you have two kind of like versions. So I needed to inform everybody. So I just needed to create this like great paragraph to the storybook to inform everybody that, hey, if you're using this component, it's kind of like deprecated version. So you please use this emit string wherever possible and work with strings to prevent any time zone changes, fixes, and so on. So then it costed us like, telling all the people that, hey, you can use emit strings and all your problems will get away. So like this like fraction of the messages that we wrote to other people. So to like handle everything. And this is the story. Like, yeah, we are now at a stage that we are still removing those emit strings from the platform, but it's kind of coming to an end, and then we will go to like different process that I will, like the good state that I will tell you later. So the lessons learned from me was that always try to gather as much feedback as possible on like feedback on like information of the system and about everything before you are starting coding something, and do not try to overcomplicate things, because I tried to overcomplicate everything and it costed me so much, like, except my pride, then yeah, a lot of things. So yeah, this is it. The final solution will be only that the date picker will be using the strings, obviously. And we will remove all of those, like, all of the documentations, all of those, like, dates, transforming functions, and so on. So this is it. Then, during the retros, it came, like, the different idea, maybe if you will be doing the same thing, like, happening to have the same thing in the future, probably there's kind of better solution than if you will have this, like, original date picker that is working with the dates. Then it's probably better idea to create, like, the version 2 of the date picker and having them working only with strings. So that way you don't have to always, like, having those, like, emit string props and doing, like, a lot of work in. You can just say that, like, this component is deprecated, please use the string. You can always, like, mark the original component deprecated as, like, some ESLint rule, or, like, in the documentation and so on, and always use the version 2 of the date picker. So this is it. Hope you will get something. I maybe help you with something. So this is it. This is my story, and thank you for attention.
Wow, what a story. I really liked your vohejbátka na narovnávátka you did with the adapters. That was great. That's a horror story, my friend.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
But I'm always telling right now, like, my colleagues that, like, try not to solve the causes, try to solve the original issue, because I see a lot of things, a lot of people that were trying to solve the symptoms, right? Because, like, there is something wrong, and they will try to solve only the symptoms, but they didn't look at it, like, what the cause, like, what could be the cause of the problem.
Yeah.
And I always tell them, like, I know it's more work, but you need to you need to solve the symptoms. Oh, sorry, the causes.
So what I took from the talk was that the date is the devil. You want to always work with the strings.
But this is better always.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you have any questions for Tomáš? Because this was like a proper technical, multiple people, multiple hours of engineering time wasted fuck up. I really like it. So do we have anything on Slido? Huh.
So this is it?
Yes? No? Okay. So Tomáš, I think you explained it very well why dates are bad and why you should do the things very simple, because there are no questions.
Nice.
So, there's a question.
I have a question. How old are you?
Okay, how old
Nice.
are you?
Nice.
That's the question. And your answer is don't ask.
Don't ask.
Okay,
Totally.
great.
I'm sorry.
Nice. You took some lessons
But
from
it's below
Lukáš.
30 and above 20.
Okay, so that was Tomáš Geržičák. Thank you. It seems that like Lukáš that went first was the most relatable guy, because he was the only one with questions. We had to, like, we were, like, very technical, I guess. Anyway, our next guest is actually a solution architect. He bridges the gap between business and IT and tries to find an optimal solution for the client so they are super happy and the developers are not flipping tables. So this is what he likes to be doing. He's from Ciklum Western Europe, and it's Jiří Fryč.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm sorry, my voice will be probably a little bit fuck up today, because I was trying to repair the water pump in well at 2 a.m. and it wasn't the best idea, so I got a little bit cold from that. But that's not why we are here, so let's talk about my fuck up. It was when we tried to migrate from monolithic systems on-premise to Kubernetes. Did anyone here try to migrate from monolith to Kubernetes, some systems? Okay, some of you. So I will go into what we did and why it happened and how we then try to fix it. It was for the client in BFSI, that's banking industry, the mortgages, refinancing, card issuance, all those stuff. It was company in Sweden. If you never worked for a company in Sweden, they are mostly really friendly, but they also have some certain limits, and this was something that was reaching the tipping point for them. So they decided that their company architect was really complaining for several years that they need to really rewrite the system, that it's slow, that it doesn't work, that they should move to the cloud to have some migration and this process. So when the company agreed, he decided to left, and the company decided that they didn't need to hire another architect. This led to the situation when they have 12 separate incidents, over 19 hours of company downtime, and I'm not talking about one system. All systems of said bank were down for those hours. There were multiple additional hours when just part of the company was down, and also the bank had 2 months without any deployments at all. As you can imagine, no one was happy about the situation. The COO, CFOs, they wanted to revert to the on-premise. It was already mostly in cloud, but they decided that it really, if it can go one way, it needs to go the other way. So we needed to fight them that it's not the best idea to do it. We also needed to talk with the head of business that they really didn't want to do any deployments during business hours, but also our developers didn't want to work during night only. And also with developers that they struggle to see the benefit of cloud when it's not working for so long. Everyone starts to losing some insights or some belief in the cloud. But before we begin, I will explain how I started in this role. I was in this bank handling the front office, that's basically the websites, everything that client sees, the websites, portals, mobile applications, marketing. My biggest job was basically to talk to the marketing people and tell them, no, we cannot expose this information of client, no, we cannot do this and that. It was mostly fighting marketing that we cannot redo the design of the websites when we redo it last week and so on. I ran it as demilitarized zone. That means that you try to really separate it from the outside world, where you have the angry customers, where you have thieves, hackers, and so on. But also there is the other side that you need to separate it from the rest of the company, from the other IT teams that can break some stuff. You really try to protect both customers from the IT and IT from the customers. We started seeing some issues on the internal side, and it was mostly that when people submitted their own application, they had delay in the response from the server. They basically look at the spinning icon for 2 minutes, and it still wasn't submitted. So one of my last issues that I needed to solve was this. We will get back to this. It's really important in later stages. But one day, before I switched to the role of architect for the company and to deal with the migration itself, everything on the internal side went down. Me and few of my colleagues were called in. It was the first incident that happened for the company. 2 services were released at the same time, and this led to cascading effect across entire cluster in Kubernetes. There were no diagrams, nothing about that would describe how actually they deployed the stuff to the Kubernetes. No one knew what happened, so we tried to fix it. We tried to kill and reboot services, redeploy everything, reconfigure part of pods. Basically, we try everything, nothing works. The strangest thing was that after 12 hours, basically everything went alive on their own. We didn't understand why and why something like that happens. It's just we tried everything in those 12 hours, nothing worked, and then from the clear sky, just it started working. So we did some initial postmortem. We discovered 3 main issues. One was identity server, that's not that important. Also that there were some redundancies. Basically everything we discovered didn't explain why something like that could happen. Last part that started giving us some idea what was happening was that they use RabbitMQ for message brokers, but they had 3 special libraries that try to professionalize RabbitMQ. This was because there didn't have the architect or technical leads even in the teams that could tell them how to use message brokers. So the product owners and the business people decided how they should use the message brokers. And they really didn't like that it's asynchronous messages. They liked that in the bank, when you come in front of the banker, you are standing in the line, and there are no way that you could go in front of someone else. So they decided that message brokers will be used really synchronously, that every message needs to be dealt in the line, and that there shouldn't be anyone that would go in front of someone else. At this stage, they really didn't believe that this will happen again, so they closed this with the result that it was just ghosting of Kubernetes, and that to fix it, they just need to never kill any service in cluster again, and never release 2 services at the same time. They were happy with this. The CFO, CIO, everyone was happy. I wasn't happy, but they decided that this is the best way forward, so I just accepted it, because I knew that there will be more and more stuff on the road. So here you can see the route, and you probably know what will happen next. So each day or each week something blew up, and they then decided that they really need to do something. They still try to blame the ghost for it, but we managed to convince them that actually there is something wrong and it needs fixing. We decided on the plan how to approach this. We had full investigation and repair after it. We decided that we will have 2 sprints without any deployments. Developers will continue on business issues, but we will have our team that will investigate what's actually happening inside Kubernetes. And we also will have 2 sprints after that where every team will focus on technical depth, and we will somehow fix what we discover. This led us to the full investigation that wasn't really happy, because we basically discovered that all services are closely, tightly coupled together, so every service is calling every other service. There wasn't any logic to it. As you will see further, there was a lot of interconnection between services, so if one service went down, basically it affected all remaining services. We also discovered that there were missing Kubernetes configurations, there were bottlenecks in the design. Also, no one in the organization knew who is responsible for Kubernetes, who is responsible for code. And it was a huge mess, not only on the code side, on infrastructure side, but also in the organization itself. And last but not least, they also struggled with databases, because they had multiple databases, but they weren't talked to only from one service. Basically, all services talk to all databases. It was nicely split, but because of that everyone talks to everything, there were a lot of connections that weren't handled by the database. We knew that we cannot fix this in 1 month. We had just 2 sprints, 2 investigations. There was already 1 sprint behind us. We had just 2 sprints from the developers where they could do something. So we decided that something are problem, but it can be delayed. We don't have to solve it right away. Some things like the databases, it can be hotfixed. We just upscale it, and client will pay more, but it can be fixed later also. But we decided that with developers, we will focus only on 2 things. That's incorrect configuration for Kubernetes and the bottlenecks in design. The Kubernetes configuration, it was mostly because you can fix a lot of the issues or the fuck-ups that are caused by code in Kubernetes directly, that we could decide what service has higher priority than other service. You could taint some services. We, for instance, have 1 service from China that was trying to get root privileges, and it was actually successfully gaining them in AKS, which we reported then to Microsoft. So also Microsoft was happy that we discovered some issue that shouldn't happen. But you can use all these configurations to really mitigate many of the issues. You instruct the Kubernetes how they should deal with the issues of their services. Here also for limits, I like to show this. If anyone, you need to deploy some CPU limits or CPU requests to your services, it's really good to Google it. You will find this nice table that will explain to you how you should do it. But let's go to the bottlenecks that are more interesting for majority of people. For instance, there was one service that talked to database that was in the monolithic way, but they wanted to go microservice, they wanted to scale up. That means that they wanted to have multiple instances, but they didn't know how to ensure consistency of data if multiple instances talk to the database. So they decided to add a redlock library that's basically distributed locking mechanism that needs Redis. But the issue is that they didn't use it in the correct way. They rather do it that they killed these 2 instances, and in reality only one of them worked. The remaining 2 were completely dead most of the time. To fix it, they also have in a CI/CD deploy script that basically deleted all data from the Redis, and not only for this service, they deleted in CI/CD Redis data for all services. That was not very nice. They also, and this was mostly also on my side, we did a lot of health checks at the start to ensure that services know what service should be running and what shouldn't, but it led to that most of the communications in Kubernetes was just health checks. Every service was checking every service. It's caused that when some service tried to boot up, it received so many health checks that it never was able to boot up because it was DDoS by 400 other services that tried to ask, are you up, are you up, are you up, are you up? And it never could get up, so it constantly crashed again and again. I was a little bit pissed, so I started to write incident reports in meme form. So I put normal incident reports, but it's long Excel files of documents, how much we lost in this incident and so on. But I decided that I will also add first page for it, and I started doing memes for these. And it really helps because incidents usually are something that you need to take really seriously. It's also something where you are pissed on someone and you need to let the steam out. And if you add the meme or if you create the meme for it, you actually let the steam out before you write the incident report. So it really helps with that you can have some fun with the incidents also. Other issues were, for instance, that they had service recursion. That means that you called from service A, service B, that called service C, but that service again calls service B, and not that it would return the response. It just created new request back to the service B from service C, and that service B created new request to service C. The additional issue was that you probably heard about statefulness, stateless design, and so on. This was actually state-hated because it couldn't be executed on the instance of the service where the first request was done, so it needed additional instance to run it. This is how I named it, because this design shouldn't exist, but here it existed, and we somehow needed to document it, and it's interesting to see that actually there was the third option missing, because no one considered that it would be implemented anywhere at any point of the time. So this was probably the biggest issue that we had to solve over coming months, that there were a lot of these service recursions. It was mostly from the technical split. So instead of having service that would deal completely with update of the user data, it was really split to the service that was dealing with update data in database and service that was updating the data in a register. That's like state register of data where we needed to report the changes. We also have a lot of redundancies. It was 8 email services that were doing the same, just sending simple plain text email. 4 different PDF services. One, as I said before, was from China that constantly trying to get root privileges. It tried to send data to the China and so much more, but in the end, we managed to convince management that we really need to replace this one. And many common libraries that weren't that common. But to get to why it happened, basically, it wasn't that someone would do something wrong or they would intentionally break it, but the issue was that leadership decided to do the move to the cloud. They had the right motivations, business outcomes, financial considerations, all these things have written down. But then they passed it to the product owners, and they didn't have the technical leadership that could really execute the next phases correctly. So they decided rather to do directly one step at a time. So they split part of the applications, they Dockerized it, moved it to Kubernetes, and did it like this, but never they executed that. There needs to be some planning stage, some readiness checks, that you really need to verify that everyone is on board, that you know who will support the Kubernetes, that there will be some skill readiness, that you will upskill people, you will let them know how they should use the clusters, and so on. And this never happened. And because of that, most of the issues happened. But as I was saying at the start, this part of the code was something that even with the 90 hours of downtime, just because we saved all those applications to simple storage account, that was something that caused that we at the company didn't lose much of the revenue, because for the mortgage bank, the majority of revenue is gained from the mortgages that they receive on the website, and websites were constantly up. It was running separately from the cluster, and it was enough to save just loan case to the JSON to file, and later they could process it. Yeah, it cost some overtime for many people in the company, but they didn't lose the money. It just cost more to run it like this, but they still receive all the loan cases, so the end customer wasn't affected. Okay, so that's all from my side. Do you have some questions?
Jirka, that was fascinating. I really like the state handling. So how many services there were in the...
Yeah, we had public cluster that was around 100 services, and the main cluster that was constantly failing was around 400 or 500 services.
So there were like 500 unique things that did stuff?
No, it was unique stuff was 150 or 200, but there were replicas, so multiple instances.
That's crazy. And how many customers did this loan bank serve? On monthly basis, the new loan cases, it was in thousands, but there is a lot of like ongoing mortgages that are for years and years, and it never needs some processing, so that wasn't needed. Are you seeing a therapist because of this, or kind of have you recovered already, or?
It was actually not that bad, and that's mostly because of the Swedish nature of people, that they really don't care that much. We actually had one funny situation that we had product owner that was supporting us during one of the downtimes. It was almost midnight, and she was there just sitting with the wine and drinking the bottle of the wine, probably on company budget, but they were really supportive and tried to found out what really caused all the issues.
Okay, nice. Does anyone have any questions? So, okay, there's a question. Nice.
A question, was anybody fired? Because it was like the inmates running the asylum kind of scenario, right?
I don't believe that anyone was fired for this. There were a couple of people fired from marketing during this because they knew that on one night we will do the fix that will take probably almost one day, and they decided that they will launch the marketing campaign on the same date. So one person was fired for that, but that was all.
Yeah, so basically it's an IT issue, but the marketing gets fired. I like it. That's, oh God. Okay, so maybe I have a question. So what was the longest, like the most nested call you saw? You know, like there's this thing when you have microservices, you should not be calling, maybe you should do one hop at max, you know, like synchronous hop. So how many hops did you see?
I don't know how many hops it was, but it was the biggest callback we received, like how long it ran. It was almost 1 hour because we disabled all the limits just to see, and it took 1 hour to execute one of the requests. But this was also caused because they solve everything by poly. That's like a repeater of requests. If request fails, it tries to repeat the request after a certain amount of time. So that's why they didn't discover many of these issues sooner, because they have this repeat logic. But I don't know how many request calls it was. But just the health checks, I can maybe say, health checks, logging of health checks took 50 terabytes of data for 1 month. And that was just reports of healthy. So there was storage accounts, 50 terabytes of data each month of healthy. Nothing else was in that storage account, just healthy. Yeah.
Like sometimes I just want to be this kind of an engineer that would go into the companies and would be like, hey, have you seen your log? It's like 50 terabytes of empty data. Okay, that would be 2,000 euros, you know, or something like that. That must be so nice. Anyway, any other questions? Yeah, Tomáš.
Do you know like who think about this idea about like moving to microservices? Because I know you were telling showing the slide that some like management was trying this. So do you know like? Yeah, was a brilliant idea.
Basically, the move from monolith to microservices was done sooner than the decision to move to Azure. So they started doing it when they still had the architect from the company. He decided to do this, but then the management decided to move to the cloud. And this decision was made because in Sweden, banking industry couldn't operate in public clouds till 2020, I believe, or something like that. And after that, they wanted to switch because they weren't happy with their on-premise provider. So they decided that move from monolith to microservices and move from the on-premise and Azure seems like that it will work together nicely if you do both things at the same time. And they just went with it without the architect that they fired, and then they needed to hire us to actually solve it for them.
And it was like complete rewrite, or like they were splitting it?
No, that's something I didn't mention. The code itself, even in the monolithic state, was really, really good. They were running almost on the newest versions of .NET, and it was easy to split the code. It just, in some cases, it should be split differently than how they decided to split it, because then it caused those many like calls between services.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, any other question? Okay, so if there are no other questions, thanks so much, Jirka, for your very amusing talk. Hope you sleep peacefully at night and this is not kind of waking you up. So this was our fuck up night. I hope that you enjoyed it, that there were some amusing fuck ups to be had. And well, I hope that next time you will share your fuck ups with us. Thank you and have a nice evening. So there will be, there'll still beer, some little snacks. Go hang with us. Just enjoy the